This conference will now be recorded.
All right.
Hello.
And we have Commissioner Ellers coming on, I think.
Yes. Can you
Tom,
see?
turn on your video. No, your video's off.
Okay, look at share your webcam.
Here we go.
There we go. Trying to hide the fact that I need a haircut.
T drive, right?
I matted mine down.
Good for you. You're set. You're looking styling, man.
Thanks, dude. Oh, we're being
Hello.
recorded.
There we go. Hello, Rita.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm just trying to see if I can, I've got, the mic is now green, which it wasn't before, and I'm wondering if it's hiding there somewhere.
We're seeing you and we're here. I'm hearing you, CJ. Hello, Terry.
Hi, Tom.
No, I think I'm getting you off, but it's through my, phone, not through the computer. But anyway, I can see you.
Cool.
Good.
Just a second.
Hi, Jody.
Hey, Jody.
You know, one day I'll clean up my office so my background looks better.
Doesn't look too bad. You ought to see mine.
Well, I'm still messing around. I'm turning up my volume here.
We hear you fine, CJ.
Yeah, but I'm trying to do it. Can you hear me now?
Yes. Not as well as I could before.
Say again?
Now I hear you well.
Oh, that's because I'm using the cell phone. Oh well. I'll deal. I'll just suffer in silence.
No, you don't have to do that.
Well, I don't have any choice. I could hang up.
Can,
Anyway,
can
go on
you
with the
hear us
meeting.
without your? Can you hear us without your cell phone?
No, I can't hear you without the cell phone.
CJ's calling in using his using the phone option instead of his microphone. CJ, what you could try doing is putting your phone on speaker. Maybe that way you wouldn't have to hold it up to your ear.
That's an idea. That's better.
Yeah, we can hear you.
I can hear you all too. So I guess it might be a workaround to put it on speaker.
Yeah, for now, until we're able to figure out the microphone issues. It's a little frustrating, but it'll work.
It'd be much better than I could putting the microphone up to my ear.
Excellent.
Well, I'm here, but I don't see me.
I don't have your video on, Joyce.
Is that something you do or I do?
You have
You
to
do.
click
Joyce, I
on,
think you.
just click on the video
Joyce, this is-
icon.
I did, and I still don't see me. Here, it says I'm talking, but it doesn't show me on screen.
I'll tell Norm how this works.
It says webcam. Do you see that up there, Joyce? Upper right.
Yeah, I see me now right there. Yeah. Share my webcam. That's the word. Okay.
There you go.
There you
Yeah.
are.
All right. How come I did it right last month?
I feel like they move the buttons, like everything goes to the right an inch or so, just so once you know how to do it, then they change it on you or something. Just those go-to-meeting people having fun, I think. How are you, Nishina?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good, very good.
Just waiting for Jody to come back. Okay, who disappeared?
Here's Jody.
DJ.
Oh, don't worry, I can still hear you.
Okay, great. Thanks, CJ.
No problem. Share my webcam, see what happens. How's that?
There you are. So do we want to go ahead and call the meeting to order and get going?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, it is, I got 6:34. And I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's July the 8th. And Rita, can you do roll call? Rita's froze up.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. So Chair Gunner,
Yes, ma'am.
Vice Chair Ellis,
Here.
Commissioner Hall,
Here.
Commissioner Mir,
Here.
Commissioner Nishioka,
Here.
Commissioner Bottenberg,
Here.
and Commissioner Kayla.
Present.
Great. So I'd like to go ahead and open with the Pledge of Allegiance. Mike, do you have a flag for us?
Yes, I do. Give me 1 minute.
All right.
Oh,
There it is.
I pledge allegiance
let's do the
to the
flag.
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You all had a chance to see my stomach, huh? Did everybody have a chance to review the minutes?
Yep.
Yes.
Are there any changes, omissions? Hearing none, I'll take a motion to accept the minutes as written.
So moved.
Second.
Do I have a second? Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Is there a change? Okay. Mike or Rita, do we have any written comment?
Do we want, hey Stan, do we want to approve the agenda first?
Do I have that on there?
That's supposed to come after the Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh my gosh, I missed it. Thank you, Tom. Motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Thank you, Joyce. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Can I just
The
ask,
agenda is approved.
hey
yes.
Stan, can I ask you a question? We had talked about old business, if we wanted to have some discussion at all about, racial injustice, et cetera, if we wanted to follow up, did we want to add that, or is that, did we not put there? That was going to
I
come
think we
after.
can discuss. We're going to discuss that right after, Rita's presentation and our review of the applications.
Okay, I just didn't see it on there, but cool, I'm good with that.
So now's the time for public comment. It's an opportunity for the public to address the Human Services Commission. We don't have any written comment. Mike, do we have anybody logged on for verbal comment?
Chair, I believe we had one written comment from a resident by the name of Jennifer Coombs. That is the only written comment that Rita and I are aware of, and we do not have anybody logged into the meeting to provide verbal comment tonight.
Okay, did everybody get her email?
Yes,
I don't think I did.
It was forwarded by, I saw Karen forwarded, I believe, to the commission earlier.
Came to
I believe it was sent directly to the Human Services Commission email list.
It was, okay.
Yeah.
except Terry and Stan.
CJ, if you did not get it, we'll make sure you get a copy of it.
Okay,
I
thank
can
you.
send it to him now.
It looks like he's sleeping. You don't want to do that.
I'm not asleep.
Okay, under new business. Staff update on what's been going on.
Good evening, everyone. So I'm just going to sort of relay City Council request a monthly update. We update them every week, and then once a month they request an update from Human Services just to find out what's going on. And as I said to them yesterday, the purpose of this update is, I can send them the data and everything, but this is really to give them a more of a robust picture and really paint a more deeper, nuanced picture of what residents in Sammamish are facing. I know that council in particular are very anxious to see trends and data points. And we'll have a better sense of that after the 15th of this month. We'll get second quarter reporting in. And so by the end of the month, we'll be able to sort of compare this quarter to last year's quarter and get a sense of if there's a rise in service units, etc. But I have been in regular contact with providers, and I just want to share some insights. So the last report out I gave, speaking to rental providers, assistance providers, we saw there was a big dip in the number of requests for financial assistance. And we feel that this had a lot to do with the federal stimulus payments, unemployment benefits, and the eviction moratoriums. And they were all contributing to households avoiding crisis. There was a prediction of an eviction tsunami, and this month we seem to be heading in that direction. St. Vincent de Paul saw a doubling of requests for financial assistance in June when compared to April and May. And many of their clients have become unemployed from jobs where you're unable to work from home. So rental assistance providers anticipate this high level need to remain with the coming eviction, late fee, and utility moratoria coming to an end. So they definitely predict an uptick in requests. Last month, I also reported that the main domestic violence agency on the East Side, LifeWire, had reported a big dip in the number of residents calling them. And they believe the economic and pandemic fallout obviously contributed to it because, survivors were unable to give a call because they're sheltering in place oftentimes with their abuser. What they have found that they've seen actually a big upsurge in calls as restrictions have loosened, and the requests for financial assistance continue at unprecedented rates. Speaking with mental health providers, the good news is that many students and parents have reduced anxiety due to the end of online schooling. I, for one, yes, I agree. However, the lack of social activities has led to feelings of depression and hopelessness amongst youth. And there's increased family conflict when youth are wanting to spend time with their friends in ways that parents don't think are safe given the current situation regarding the virus. Not doing much in the day, increased screen time and increased anxiety has led to lots of problems with sleep. And there's also a tremendous amount of anxiety around what will school look like in fall, because many students and families had very negative experiences with the online schooling experience. And there's a sense that it may exclusively be online or there may be a hybrid. So we're not quite sure what that looks like. So even that coming up is definitely adding to more anxiety. I'm looking at our foreign-born community, which comprises close to 30% of the city's population. They have unique stresses at this time. Immigration legal clinics are seeing a sharp uptick in the number of residents being served, in large part due to the pressures of a rapidly changing immigration policy. The H-4 work visa permit, which allows spouses of H-1B visa holders to work, has actually been removed. And there's been significant delays of current H-1B renewals and longer wait times for green cards and citizenship. So, we know that Sammamish has a big number of H-1B residents. And so this has just led to a lot of economic and mental health challenges for the community. The Issachar Food and Clothing Bank saw a record number of kids being served on the first day of their summer lunch distribution program, and they had over 450 kids. However, they anticipate this number to go up because they're currently only serving a quarter of all the kids that receive free and reduced lunch. So I know they're working very closely with Issachar School District to get messaging out. People experiencing homelessness are uniquely vulnerable to contracting COVID, and homelessness providers are facing extra challenges. Social distancing obviously means they need extra space for clients using shelters. The Friends of Youth, which is the area's only shelter that provides youth a place to stay, they've had to reduce the number of their beds by 15 to accommodate social distancing requirements. So, for some of the providers, the challenges of having close sort of living arrangements is being mitigated by transferring to hotels and motels temporarily, but we know that's just a stopgap measure. And then I said this last night, and I would be remiss not to give an acknowledgement and just a tremendous amount of gratitude and appreciation to the many nonprofit employees and providers who are on the front lines helping the community right now, and they're oftentimes on a minimum wage. They are stepping up to the plate. They're providing the vital services to our community now more than ever. And as a local nonprofit executive director told me, quote, "My stress is having to balance the danger of COVID versus the danger of not offering services. The simple math of just stay at home doesn't work for folks who don't have their basic needs met." So that was very powerful for me. And just gratitude and appreciation and respect. So that's it. I let them know that you guys, the most talented commission that we know, is meeting on a regular basis, and I would update you guys as well.
By the way.
Yeah, no, listen, any opportunity I have, I'm like the proud mother. But anyway, so that was it. Any questions that you guys have? This is not data driven, but this is just what I've heard and seen in the community. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do you have a copy of that you could forward to me, please?
It's actually handwritten, but I will put it out on a Word document and send it to you. Yeah.
Handwritten is fine with me. I can read it.
Oh, you haven't seen my handwriting, CJ.
So it does sound, Rita, like pressure is beginning to build as unemployment is not going away, family budgets get tighter, and pressure within the home is starting to build up steam too, as evidenced by domestic violence calls, etc. Is that a fair way of not trying to be too ominous, but it does feel like things are starting to build out there?
I just think it's this recipe of unfortunate events. So with all the moratoria ending, the eviction, the unemployment benefits, coupled with increased time at home, kids now at school not being able to socialize. It's just this real, it's this melting pot of just unfortunate events, and it's not looking good. Yeah.
Thank you for that update.
And I would see an increase in stressors with, like you said, the moratorium going away. The extra $600 a week unemployment is going away. So, you have the rent aspect, and you also have the fund aspect that's going to come into play. And that's increased stressor on a family.
Yeah.
Especially if they only had one person who was working at the time and can't work now.
I can tell you the food bank saw a 62% increase in lunch for the break clients, basically, which this is the time that would kick in, but 62% versus last year. So an indication of, families. The good news is families are taking advantage of what's available to them, but the sad news is that more and more families are needing to take advantage of it.
And traditionally
Well, thank you,
more,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
yeah, I'm saying that traditionally more lucrative professions like dentistry, etc., have become quite redundant. Like, I personally know some dentists who, who are hardly making any money now. So.
Well, anything that can be put off is being put off.
Yeah.
People still have that fear factor of going to the dentist or going to the doctor as well. So, less people going, income is down. It's unfortunate, but for a little while, this is the new norm, right?
Sounds like it.
And hopefully our service providers can meet the needs. Rita, did you want to give us a summary of the training?
I'm sorry?
Rita,
Before we start.
Let people know who need care that we do have some dentists in an agency that will help them at reduced price. Did you hear me or no?
Yes, we did.
Sorry.
So before we go into the application review, Rita, did you want to give an overview of the training and a summary and maybe some slides for us, huh?
Yeah. So I know before we see the floor to Tom and Jody to give their application reviews, I was just hoping, I thought it would be a great idea just to sort of just remind ourselves of what we learned with the training with Sarah Tran. Can you see my screen, Mike? Perfect, yeah. So before I jump into that, so tonight we're going to be reviewing cultural inclusion, domestic violence, and senior applications, and that was the subgroup given to Tom and Jody. And just looking ahead, on July 22nd, we'll have the mental wellness applications. August 12th, the basic needs applications, and August 26th, we'll develop final recommendations. So just really, I just thought it would be good to just sort of all revisit some of the guiding principles that Sarah Tran had mentioned in her equity training way back in April. And I think these principles made sense in April, but they seem to particularly resonate now, particularly since the death of Mr. George Floyd. There's just something where, like, I knew these were true, but it just resonates more, I feel, with everything that's been going on now. So I thought it would be great for us to just sort of look through the principles. So impact's the first one, prioritizing communities of color. And those communities have experienced persistent historic and systemic oppression. Being reflective, investing in organizations and staff and leadership that reflect the communities they serve, people that have lived experience. So, for instance, having a homelessness organization with people with lived experiences of homelessness on their board or on their staff. Community trust, investing in organizations that we know that have the trust of the community. And then we have agency and power, ensuring the program promotes self-determination of their clients and redistribution power to disenfranchised communities. Systems change, really disrupting root causes and systems and working to build and influence new systems. So this can refer to institutional racism and trying to change policies, practices, procedures, and identifying strategies and resources to address root causes, and racial justice. Really proactively reinforcing policies, practices, attitudes, and actions that produce equity in power, access, opportunities, treatment, impact, and outcomes for all. So I think it's just sort of good just to remind ourselves of what we learn, of some of the key guiding principles, and just have that at the back of our minds when we review grants. So with that being said, I am going to, oh my goodness, sorry, I beg your pardon. I'm going to give the floor to Tom. And Tom, I did have, hold on. Okay, just hold on. I'm going to apologize. I cannot see. Tom, you did request your talking points. I need to find those very quickly. So do you want to just quickly tee that up, Tom? And I'm going to try and find those. Hold on.
So hello, everyone. This is really the start of our discernment around grants. And it's both exciting and a little harrowing because we know we have a lot of work to do. We also know that the level of grant requests that have been made are far above what we know to be budgeted now, which shouldn't be daunting. It should just be a statement of reality. It doesn't mean that that's where we'll end up. So Jody and I had a phenomenal discussion as we went through 3 sets of grants. And as we talked and as we did our individual work before we even came together, we realized that we found ourselves setting a context and reflecting on the environment within which we were evaluating the grants before we could even get into the grant. So we thought we'd share that with you. This was kind of our mindset and our perspective as we did our work. You may agree with some of it, you may disagree with others, but it was helpful for us anyway. So the first thing is, and I'm going to walk through that and then we'll jump right in the grants. The first thing you see at the top of the screen is the context. And to ask what's different versus 2 years ago when many of us went through this is probably the biggest understatement known to man, right? Everything's different. Everything from the situation that families find themselves in to great concern about the virus to real unsettledness in our communities around racial injustice, et cetera. So the truth is, let's just acknowledge right out front that this is a very different time that we are evaluating these grants. There's lots of uncertainty about the future, as I call out, and that we do expect more difficulty for our residents to navigate social and economic environments. And Rita shared that's starting to come forward even more. So the context is very different. The next point was that you could describe what I've been talking about as environmental strain, but where that comes home to roost is the stress on the individual and in the household. So added environmental strain directly leads to individual stress. And where that is likely to show up in particular, from our view, was that domestic violence, if there's strain in the household, and that might have been present on some lower level, it could show up in a bigger way. Hopefully not. But what that means is we need to make sure people know where to turn. Mental wellness, I mean, everyone is feeling a little unsettled, and those that were struggling before this even unfolded certainly would find themselves in a situation where they're probably going to need more help rather than less. And finally, seniors, from the perspective of isolation, from the perspective of what in the heck is going on with the world, I didn't expect my life to get to this point, and where does the future bring us? So those are the 3 areas, but you could make an argument that every area is under strain for sure. The third point is, and Rita reviewed with us, what we had all gone through. I thought that workshop was quite good. Could have been longer for sure, but it was a good start. But racial justice and equity has to be more fully addressed. And we don't really even know exactly how to do that or where to go. But what we can say is there should be a lens through which we discern our grants around racial justice and racial equity. And so that is another thing that's bringing weight to bear on the work we're doing. The fourth is, the truth is, most grantee organizations are experiencing dwindling resources. Now, there has been an outpouring of resources, but others are actually being forgotten about because they're not in the limelight right now. So at a time when demand for services are increasing, and even more so in the future, resources for our partners that we collaborate with are strained and going to become more so. The next point is that if you really think about, we took a lot on when we took 5 needs assessment. We all know what they are at this point. The truth is, it's very, very difficult to know what size those, I'll call them problems or opportunities, are in our community. Domestic violence is one that you could say, well, gee, based on reports, it's not a problem. But when you talk to the experts, there's absolutely a high level of underreported in our community. You could say the same for basic needs. There's stigma about reaching out to look for help, or mental wellness. So the work we're doing, it's hard to know exactly how big the problem is. It doesn't mean we shouldn't challenge ourselves to get more informed as we move along. But let's just say up front, it's sometimes hard to know exactly how big the crux of the problem is. In part because these problems are often hidden from sight. We've used the term invisibility. People want to be sometimes invisible if they've got a problem, but sometimes they're invisible to the rest of us, which is a sad thing, but there is an invisibility. There's a lack of knowledge for those that need help in terms of where to turn, and of course, a stigma. So that's the context. But where it starts to become maybe a little more promising is, the truth is the city of Sammamish has resources available. The good news is some of those resources have been brought to bear already. It's really a matter of where we choose as a city to spend our money and where our priorities lie. And that's where we can play a big role in terms of providing counsel to the city council. The truth is, every time we've made an ask, they've supported us. It's required a lot of work behind the scenes, but they've supported us. And so my view is, what we ought to be doing with these grants is reviewing each one on its merits and determining if it's worth funding. And for now, not so much worrying, can Sammamish afford it? We'll have to figure that out down the road. But I want to make sure we're not eliminating good grants because we're worried the money might not be there. We are an affluent community, and we should hold ourselves accountable for doing what's right relative to the need in our community. The final 2 points, 1 point actually, is, and I struggle with this a little bit because we talk a lot about the city of Sammamish needs to take care of our own. We need to take care of those in Sammamish. But the truth is, we also need to play a regional role. And where does Issaquah or Redmond or Bellevue or Carnation begin, and where do we end? And it's unclear. Some of our own residents go elsewhere for services. So we should be willing to play some regional role, even though those residents of ours may not be getting that particular need met here by a nonprofit. And we should talk about that, because how much is too much, or do even people agree with that? But given our role, we should be a good community citizen. There's an opportunity to collaborate to meet the collective needs of our residents. There is some need for reciprocity across cities, but if you take that too far, you won't be taking care of your own residents. So I'm just putting that out there as a consideration. The conclusion that I'd like to suggest is, this is a very unique time for all of us. We should let the true need guide us rather than target a predetermined dollar amount, knowing we will have to respect that dollar amount and tell the council how we'd spend it. But if we in our discernment feel more should be spent, I believe after due consideration, we got to be ready to defend it, but we also should be ready to tell the city council what we feel the need is in our community. That was the context, at least for Jody and I, that rang true. Any comments on that, or you want to disagree about it, or anything I've missed there? Or Jody, do you want to add anything to what I've said?
I don't have anything to add. You did a wonderful job.
Okay.
I agree. It was a good presentation, and let's see where we can help some people.
Phenomenal. That's all I have tonight. Thank you very much. Okay. So now we're into the grants. This is where the work begins. And Jody, I was thinking we just take this, maybe we just kind of tag team every other or something. We might take it in the order that we did it, unless we have what's first up. Would it be okay? I just, in my own mind, domestic violence was the first one up. Could we go to domestic violence? Is that okay?
Of course, yeah.
Just in the order, we went domestic violence, cultural inclusion, and seniors, and that seemed to be this glued in my own head. So by way of background, domestic violence, when I think about the 5 need areas, this is one where maybe as a commission, we've probably done less work versus the others. You can really understand how we've gotten some great traction in the others, but domestic violence, while we had panel discussions and we've discussed it, we also, I think, are in the process of learning more about its occurrence in our community. So the first one we had up there, going in our order, was actually the one in the very bottom, the Eastside Legal Assistance. Sorry, can we go to that one? We found this is an excellent organization. By way of background, it gives free civil legal aid to low-income residents, and basically it's the area's only certified volunteer legal program. They offer free legal advice, heavy representation of domestic violence survivors. In fact, this is the one where they have to turn people away. I believe this was the 4-to-1 where they actually literally have to turn people away. Their request for us, this was one of our strongest scorers. They requested, we gave them 2,000 last grant cycle. They requested 5,000, and we found free merit in their grant, and we are recommending at this point to fund the entire 5,000. Jody, anything to build on there?
No, I think it's important to note that it is the only legal aid program for domestic violence on the East Side. They're very well respected, and they also are really good at community partnerships. Their staff is diverse, and they're really a model for community partnering with community organizations that are non-legal organizations. So yeah, they partner really closely with ERIC, which is the East Side Refugee Immigrant Program, and just have really strong track record with both in domestic violence, in legal services, and in their community partnerships. So.
And they also are particularly good at reaching out to communities of color, I believe we talked about. So yep. Another thing worth calling out. And what for all the commissioners, what you'll hear from us is reviewing quickly each grant. We'll tell you what our assessment is and what a recommendation is. There are some grants that we're actually saying we should not grant. There are some that we are recommending lower than they asked for. The domestic violence ones, 3 of the 4, we actually lean toward granting the entire request. One we brought down a little bit. So this one, powerful organization, one of the provide a unique need in the community. We're recommending that we fully grant them at $5,000. The next one is, any questions on that? It's a little weird to not be in the same room to read the room. Any questions, comments?
Tom, it's Terry. So would their proposal provide, would they, up on the, in Sammamish, would they be using the money to fund nighttime clinics or with volunteer lawyers? Is that essentially, that's my understanding is essentially how things like this work.
That's the crux of it. in terms of timing, I think they are flexible on timing. Let me find out about the timing for you.
I can just quickly answer that, Terry. So ELAP actually will, in the service units last go around, basically guarantee they will do like 2 outreach events in the community. I do know that they actually serve more than what they have allocated for in terms of residents. So I know our residents will go to Issaquah or Bellevue or Redmond as well for legal clinics. So they will have informationals at the farmers market or at the library. But I do know our residents do go to their legal clinics, even if they're not on the plateau.
Okay, thank you.
In their grant, Terry, they talk about how do they accommodate client schedules, evenings, early morning, on demand, and/or same day. In holidays, so they really do make themselves available as needed. So
I'll just note that on domestic violence, oftentimes they seek services outside of their hometown because it's not safe to be seen getting services near their home. So that's why a lot of domestic violence, as we've mentioned, they'll be like, go to Redmond or go to Bellevue or go to Issaquah to get services. So.
And, I just wanted to point out that even though this wasn't really a criteria, but when I was reviewing the mental wellness applications, I was looking at how some of the providers have tried to provide information on how they're meeting clients' needs during COVID. What innovative approaches have they put in place? Because some proposals did address that issue. And even though it wasn't really a criteria and we wouldn't really allocate points on that criteria, but I found it helpful where some proposals really clearly laid out how they plan to meet the needs of the community during COVID.
Thanks, Nishina.
Which is great to see them flexing and addressing the current crisis in front of us, right? Okay, anything else on ELAP, the Eastside Legal Assistance Program, before we move on? Okay, the next up, do we want to take on LifeWire? Okay.
So, are you asking me, Tom?
Oh, you want? Yeah, sure. Why not?
So LifeWire, we had 2 proposals. One was for their survivor advocacy services. So you can see on the slide, providing helpline, case management, resource referral for safety planning, consult, support, and DV education. This is really like the heart of their work at LifeWire. And they're located in Bellevue and they have groups that domestic violence support groups all over the East Side. And so that's the first. I think it's helpful to think of it in 2 parts, just so you can see. And then the second one, if you can the second one is more of a housing stability program, providing some cash for, I think that's the correct one, right? Let me just look.
Yes,
providing rental assistance. Yeah. And in Sammamish, as we know, the rent is really high. And that is definitely a barrier to victims leaving, is not having housing stability. And they, don't want to take their children out of a home to be homeless. And so that's what the housing stability program attempts to address. Tom, forgive me, I did not write down on mine the amount, but my memory is that we wanted to fully fund the advocacy one and partially fund the housing. Is that correct?
So what we have is the last time we funded about $25K on the core program. They're asking for 27. That's the crux of what they do. And we are recommending fully funding the request, 27K, so about 2K over last time. The last time they did not make the request of the stability program, so that's, in a way, that's new to us. It makes sense that they need, some of this is just helping people get through utility bills, et cetera, et cetera. And we found that important, but not as compelling for us to fund, but we still understood how it fit their overall program. So we're recommending, while they requested about 15,000, we're recommending we fund to the degree of 5,000 for that program, in part because we understand why it's important to put money in their pocket, but there are other programs out there that potentially could help in that regard. Having said that, when someone's under real duress, you don't want to send them into the food bank to get a stipend or something either. So we understand how they need it. But since it was the first time they requested that, knowing that we have to be judicious about this, we didn't want to provide the whole amount at this point. So that is LifeWire. I mean, when you think about domestic violence and the leader in the region, it really is them. And as I mentioned, I very much believe, if I can make any plug, over the next year for the commission to better understand what's happening in domestic violence and what could be done more about it to help victims, that would be my thought. And LifeWire can be a wonderful added value partner in that way. Any questions before we move on to the final grant for under domestic violence umbrella?
So Tom, are you suggesting for the stability program 5,000 and for the advocacy services 25?
27 for the advocacy, which was their request. We gave them 25 last time, so we're recommending 27 for the advocacy and 5 for the although maybe we're at 25. I had we were going to do the whole thing, but that's okay. I'm seeing that it's 25, so therefore.
So thanks.
We're good, Tom.
Go ahead. Can I hear a question?
Yeah, the slide is correct. They requested 25 this year and 27 last year.
Oh, I got that. Okay, turned around. Okay.
And
sorry
so we're recommending to fully fund the full amount of 25,120, not 27. 27 was the amount they requested last year.
I apologize. I got that turned around in my notes.
Yeah, no worries. And then the last one is the King County Sexual Assault Resource Center. You know, it's very closely linked, sexual assault and domestic violence. And one of the things that I know that Tom we talked about is that sexual assault really affects a lot of young folks, and we have a large youth population. And so we thought this was really important to fund, in that there was only one request in this set of grant requests for sexual assault. And we thought it was strong enough to support a request. And we're suggesting we lower the amount though from 5,000 to 2,500. And that came down to, I think it was really about the numbers and the impact. In terms of why we're suggesting that we go less than the full amount.
Yeah, and that is, yes. And what I will add on that is 2 years ago, we said, you know, we need to be disciplined about where we're putting grant dollars. And we said domestic violence, so there's nothing good about sexual assault, but that fell out. Over the last 2 years, I've learned a lot. We've all learned a lot about how ultimately the umbrella is violence in some way on a person. And sexual assault, Stan, you've said this so well in past times. Sexual assault will often show up on younger, and domestic violence perhaps less young, although it can show up in youth as well. And then we had the King County Sexual Assault leader come talk to us, and I think I came away realizing you need to look at the two as a one, as a whole. And the fact that we didn't, and yet it is a broad organization, and it feels we'd be remiss for not funding it on some level, but we didn't feel we had to go all the way to the 5,000. But at least we're back funding them this cycle.
So what is your total of all 5, please?
Say that again?
What's the total of all 5 grants that you're talking
If we
about?
look at your screen, you can see all the numbers. It might be easier to read the visual.
Yeah, so the request is about 50K. In this area, we're recommending 37.5.
37.5.
Yep. Anything more on the King County Sexual Assault Resource Center or domestic violence as a sub area in total?
I just want to speak to LifeWire. Just looking at what the Seattle Foundation did in phase 1 for LifeWire, this was for vulnerable populations, it was $25,000. And in phase 2, another $25,000 for mental health. And then you take a look at what the other cities gave in May, it's another $150,000. So obviously others see need as well. I think we're right on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Joyce. Okay. You want to go,
Tom,
yes?
I just wanted to clarify for everybody, if you recall, later on, we'll have a chance to review all of the grants and all the requests at one time, as far as based on the recommendations of the groups.
Yeah, thank you, Stan. I mean, this first cut, really what you're getting is discernment in a focused area. We also understand that it can accrue up and we're going to have to figure out how one compares to the other and what is critically needed. But we came into this saying, we're going to make recommendations on merit, and then we're going to see how the numbers settle out after all 3 groups have a chance, was our mindset.
Mm-hmm.
This one you did great, so let's see what we got on the other 2, huh?
Okay, cool, thank you.
Can you go back to cultural inclusion?
Of course.
And our first one up in our packet was, and you can see the requests in front of you. What was good is it's a broader range than last time. So that's good. It's showing that the word is getting out. It's showing that people are leaning in. And also I'd say we're getting more familiar, at least I have been, with who's out there. The first one I actually had up was the Chinese Information and Service Center. And we found, so basically this is a new grant requesting that provides Chinese and Russian families information and referral to community resources, and focuses on basic needs around healthcare and education. Honestly, when I picked this grant up, I wanted it to be great. I wanted to understand about the need. And in general, we found this grant lacking and not compelling, and really didn't demonstrate the true impact in Sammamish. And we wondered if it was actually going to impact Sammamish residents anyway, in as much as there's a kind of a cultural connectivity that this information can be gained elsewhere, was our thought. So on this one, we actually are not recommending funding, in part because the grant itself just seemed lacking. Jody, did I miss anything there?
Yeah, and is this the one that we funded previously and they didn't meet any outcomes last year? That's what my notes are.
Yeah, that's correct. So we funded them last year and we only paid them for 1 quarter because they were unable to fulfill service units in the other 3 quarters.
So that was also part of our overall, taking that into consideration, that we funded them previously. They weren't able to fulfill the contract, and so we didn't pay them for 3 out of the 4 quarters. And then that, in addition to what Tom mentioned about the proposal, was not very compelling, was not really didn't talk about Sammamish very well. And just, I won't get into the details, but different parts of the proposal just was overall weak and a little bit difficult to understand what the impact was. So that, combined with the fact that we funded them previously and they weren't able to, and Rita's shared with us that her take on why they weren't able to fulfill their contract in the past is they just really haven't been able to engage in Sammamish. They have a satellite office in Redmond, and they have stronger relationships in Redmond, but they haven't really been able to connect with the Sammamish residents. It's for that reason aren't able to serve the community here in Sammamish. So that's why we combined with all of that, we decided not to fund them.
So
Okay.
zero, is that correct?
Zero.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Zero.
Zero.
Okay. Do we want to go to IAWW? They have 3 of them. Is that the next one up?
Let's do the others, the maps and the Issaquah, and then do all the IAWWs together.
Okay. We can do that. Go ahead, Jody.
Okay, so are we doing MAPS next? So MAPS is an organization that works with the Muslim community. They're a well-respected organization. Generally, the proposal itself, to be completely transparent, wasn't really strong around Sammamish. I think they talked about Kent and Bellevue more. However, we don't have any other requests for the Muslim community here in Sammamish. We know that they're well connected in the Muslim community, and we felt it was important to fund them because we know they are doing good work generally, and we want to create. Some of these we're also thinking about relationship building in terms of building relationship with the community and the organization. And developing that relationship. So this is our first proposal from MAPS MCRC. And so there is a piece of it that we wanted to support them and support the Muslim community that does live in Sammamish. Even if there were parts of the proposal that wasn't the strongest, knowing that they're a good, strong organization, well connected to the Muslim community, we thought we would partially fund them. They asked for 10,000, and I believe we're suggesting to fund at the 2,500 level. Is that correct, Tom?
Yes, that's what I have.
Okay.
And the idea is that we know. I mean, we've seen groups that we've leaned in and funded because we know the culture has a presence here. IWW is a good example of that, actually. And the more you work with them, IWW, the more they leaned in, and we were hopeful that this can be the case. And we didn't feel like we would want to outright walk away from this group, considering first time ever granting, but yet they need to over time demonstrate how they can actually help make that impact in Sammamish. And we've seen groups respond when we've had those discussions with them. So we didn't want to walk away, but we certainly didn't want to give them 10K.
So I had a quick question. So in the last grant review cycle, we had flagged some grants where we had some follow-up questions, where I think Rita had reached out, for some follow-up information. So this might be one if ultimately we decide to fund it when we look at all the grants that have come through. I mean, just getting some more information from them on how do they plan to, do more outreach in Sammamish and build those networks in Sammamish. I mean, getting that information might be helpful for this one.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it wasn't so much that they don't do it as much as they just didn't speak to it. So potentially they could be doing it. We just don't know. Because remember, it's important to remember, partly for Terry, since you're new, this is some of these proposals when you read them, they're written for many cities. And so they might sometimes not really focus in on your city as well as you want, because they're trying to write in this much words, trying to address everybody. So that could possibly be it too. So I think you're right, Nishina. It might be nice to do some follow-up questions around their reach in Sammamish, since they're a new organization to us.
Okay, do we want to move? Any questions or comments before we move to the next?
Just the Seattle Foundation and the COVID money has given them $150,000, and that's including of the vulnerable populations, mental health, and emergency financial assistance. So there's a recognition that they do a lot of good.
They do. My organization has interacted with MAPS, and we think they're excellent. So we're moving on to the Issaquah Schools Foundation.
So Cultural Bridges.
Overall, we thought it's a strong program. It has a strong track record with us as well. We funded it last year, and they did really well. In fact, they did more than they needed to do. And so, you know, this program is about connecting families, particularly around immigrant and refugee and low-income families. And so we thought we suggest to fully fund this program.
And I think it's 5,500 was their request. Which was,
yeah, if you're looking at the grant, they made a typo. So if you are reading the extra grants, like I don't know if all of you are reading these, but they say on the top page they're requesting 11,000, but actually their budget is 5,500. So they're actually requesting 5,500.
cool.
So we are recommending to grant them the full of 5,500, not 11,000.
And it's based on the need in the community and their track record and the fact that we funded them roughly around that level in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Any questions on that one?
Okay, let's move on to IAWW. To frame up IAWW, they are, as an organization, I have, as I've worked with them through the lens of trying to jumpstart seniors, and then coming to understand what they've done in the community. And we also, as we all know, funded them through the Mental Wellness Special Grant. Not only do I think they're a gem in the community, they're so willing to collaborate and share, and they truly, truly over-deliver on whatever it is they say they're going to do. So they really, in a way, for me, are the kind of, you know, best practice, a group in total to be aspired to by other groups serving Sammamish. That's the general comment. But then we scrutinized quite deeply, you know, each of the grants, and they had 3 grants. One is a cultural navigator program. Can we go to the cultural? Because I'm gonna end on the mental wellness. The cultural navigator program, when you read the grant, and when you see it in action, and Joyce, we saw that a little bit with the seniors, but it's unbelievable. What they do is they have someone whose job it is to help help you figure it out. And it has to do with everything from how do I use a transit to healthcare to legal. It's just very, very remarkable. And they become experts in the community, and they're out in the community. And the way they recruit, they really do get people that can lean in and get folks that are maybe uncomfortable even asking these questions to lean in and ask for help. It's a wonderful program. They are asking, last time and they cobbled together lots of small grants to afford it. Last time Sammamish paid $5,000. This time they requested $6,000, and we're recommending that we cover the $6,000. Any other comments on, you know, really anyone who's had any exposure to Cultural Navigator? Jody, I know you've seen that up close. Rita, and even Joyce, I know you've seen some things.
Yeah, my organization provides legal services to small businesses, and we partnered with IAWW to do outreach for us, to connect small business clients in that community to our services. And it was really the cultural navigators who hold these small business owners' hands and go through the application for legal services, and even will use their time to get on the phone with the attorney, even if the person speaks English. Even if the business owner speaks English, just to, if the business owner just doesn't feel confident that they're going to be able to have a, you know, productive meeting with the attorney, they're afraid they might not understand them or whatever it is, and they will go through that. They will go to all the way to actually being on the phone call with them, not just like doing outreach and connecting, but really go over to the top. So my experience with them individually has been really, really, really great.
Cool. Any other comments or questions? We're going to continue on the other two for IAWW, but anything specifically on Cultural Navigator? Okay, we're going to move to what they call human services. And if I can read that short little sentence up front, and you see it generally in front of you, but here's how they describe what they do. And we know they in fact deliver on this. IAWW identifies and addresses needs of seniors, families, and youth, and they break it into 3 groups into community input-driven approach. And how they do that is, you know, and their goal is to address isolation, lack of resources, and lack of competence in terms of navigating. How they do this is they host daily or weekly wellness classes, legal clinics, citizenship, healthcare workshops, intergenerational lunches, year-round leadership training, service projects, workshops on bullying, racism, community conversations on taboo topics, civic engagement, in town halls to engage and connect. And I read that, and I've seen some of that in action, not all of it, but some of it. And I just say, wow, because they really do make it come alive. We'd seen it through some of the work in seniors. The other thing that's worth noting with distinct cultural groups is there's a whole nother level of being ostracized, potentially being bullied, but also navigating the home versus the community, you know, the face to those groups and the strain. And IAWW, I think, allows people to step in and say, how do I even figure this out? How it's different than Cultural Navigator is Cultural Navigator is just the person you go to figure out transportation. This is, these are workshops that help you figure your own way, is the way I've thought about it. So we like this one quite a lot. And they requested, we got 10,000 last time. They requested 12, and we're recommending, I think. Yeah. Any additional comments on this one?
I didn't hear what you were requesting.
They requested 12. We are recommending 12. We gave them 10 last cycle.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. And then should we move to the final one? The mental wellness. This is actually about going more deeply into kind of a providing true therapy and help. And this wasn't requested last time, but when you really look deeply at the strain that this cultural group can be under, we thought there was merit there, but we couldn't see our way all the way to funding it in total. I think we said we're going to fund it at, I think we said 15,000, right?
Half the
amount. And we also wanted to acknowledge that this was, you know, where does cultural inclusion overlap into mental wellness? Yeah. So we first thought maybe this should go to that group, but we decided to evaluate it, provide input, but then very open to you guys taking a look at it in the context of everything you're doing relative to mental wellness. We thought there was such unique strain on different cultural groups that it made sense for us to evaluate it and make a recommendation, but obviously wide open to how you guys might think about this. So, and I know we're hitting with you guys with a lot, so.
And you want to know about the Seattle Foundation?
Absolutely.
$50,000 to the vulnerable populations, 25 to mental health, 25 to emergency financial assistance. The city of Bellevue, 100,000.
So another,
Very productive.
The total for this category?
say that again, CJ?
Total for this category, cultural inclusion.
Yeah.
Put all the numbers up because you took some things out.
I'm sorry, you keep cutting out
Can
from.
you talk more into your phone? We can't hear you very well.
What is the total of this category?
Oh. Do
Rita,
we have
can you
a
put
slide
that
for that?
slide up?
I don't think we've gotten to the final. I think we're about to get there.
There we go.
Yeah, and then is it Nishina and Sandy? You guys have the mental wellness category.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
It would be super helpful if you take a look at it. They do a great job explaining the unique strains,
Yeah.
but I think we do need to put it in the context of what you're looking at too, for sure.
Yeah, because I mean, in reviewing the mental wellness applications, I felt as though even though since there's a specific question about how do they address cultural diversity, etc. And in that section, people have talked about it, but it seems, my sense is, I haven't reviewed this India Association of Western Washington proposal, but I'm assuming that they probably have a much more culturally oriented approach. So I would love to look at it just to mainly, even as a comparator to some of the other mental wellness applications we have received.
Yeah,
Look at it.
they have
I
a
agree.
couple. They have some statistics. For instance, Asian high school females are twice as likely to have attempted suicide as males. Asian American youth reporting considering suicide 19% higher. The whole thing felt even more strained, even though we know in total youth in Sammamish are strained. So there are some compelling numbers that would be great to bounce it off some of the other things you guys are seeing in the other grants,
Yeah.
for sure. I mean, to say out loud, the hard thing is you read most of these grants, it's very rare to get a grant that just is not compelling or thoughtful or well prepared. Every one of these things you would love to fund fully, but we also know our job is to try and discern. So that is cultural inclusion. In total, we requested we're requested almost 74K, and we are recommending tonight 41K. And moving to seniors, if there's no other questions about that. Seniors actually, as an area, had the most grants, but there were 2 or 3 that you'll see the 2 on the bottom. The requests are quite small. We have some perspective on that, but we wrestle with sometimes we actually want to provide, is that the administrative challenge higher than whatever we'd actually give the group. So there's some reasons to consider funding them as well. We'll get into. Let's start with the very top, if we can. Eastside Friends of Seniors. They are kind of they do much of the bulk around seniors in the community now. I have heard a couple crazy people are trying to start a senior center, and I have great reservations about those individuals, but it was a joke. Joyce is shaking her head. But the cool thing about Eastside Friends of Seniors is 2 components. They're about transportation in terms of getting people where they need. As you can imagine, as a senior, how do I get there? And they're also about trying to help with small odd jobs around the house. They vet their volunteers to make sure it's safe. And they have, I think last year they provided 800 different car rides to Sammamish residents, 818. And they provided 500 incidents of home care, home chore type things. So if anything, the city of Sammamish should be embracing this group even more. We found them to be both compelling. They're requesting 20,000. We gave them 20,000 last time. Make sure I have my numbers right. Take my glasses off. I have that right, Rita?
Yeah.
20.
Yeah.
honestly, and just
That's
full
great.
transparency around the dialogue, if anything, we'd like to see them pick it up and be more assertive and get out there and more broadly engage with different cultural groups. They're doing good work in their silo. They've been financially challenged quite a bit. We've worked with Linda. She was really helpful on ideation for the senior center, but we didn't think she was assertive enough to be ready at the time because she was struggling with some things in her own organization to really want to be under her umbrella for the senior center. That might change. We might align with them more closely, but as a group, it's something that should be embraced in Sammamish. If anything, I want to see them step it up. Anything on that one?
So are you recommending the 20,000 or what are you recommending?
Yes, the 20,000 is a recommended.
Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. Okay. Which one do you have for me next?
We can do, so we had 2 from Sound Generations.
Can we save the senior center to the end?
Yeah, let's save the senior center to the end. Am I on mute? No, I'm not.
No, I can hear you.
We had 2 for Sound Generations, 1 for their transportation program, and 1 for their Meals on Wheels. And we looked at them at the same kind of in comparison and just like holistically. And we felt like on the transportation side, we have Eastside, the one we just talked about, Eastside Friends of Seniors, who does an excellent job with the transportation. So it wasn't a unique service. And then on the Meals on Wheels, we thought particularly at this time. Oh, and it was a low amount. That was the one that was like $500 or something.
Yeah,
right?
like why bother?
Yeah, so we kind of felt like the administrative amount of administration to give them $500 wasn't worth it since we are already funding $20,000 in transportation through Eastside Friends of Seniors. But on the food side, it's still a small amount. It was like $780, almost $800. But we thought in this period of COVID, seniors getting access to food is an issue normally, but it's exacerbated with COVID. And so for that reason, we thought we didn't have another food program for seniors, and we see that that's a big need, particularly in this time of COVID. And so that's why we voted to fully fund the $780 that they requested for the seniors' Meals on Wheels.
Can I ask you a question on the Meals on Wheels?
Yes.
Did they give you an indication? That's not a large amount to feed people. Did they give you an indication of how many people they were going to try to feed with that?
Yeah, it's not that much. I mean, they say it's 124 meals, eight residents. So at one part they say 8 residents, another part they say 124 meals. So I did the math. Basically, it becomes, and I don't know if these numbers jive, but this is how I did it. I did 124 meals divided by 8 residents, 15 meals per resident, and you think it's kind of like the same residents throughout a year, going back for more than one meal. And so perhaps it's about a meal a month, maybe. I don't know how it might differ. Like it might be a senior for a particular time, their family goes out of town or something, or their helper goes out of town for 2 months. And so during that period, they get more meals. I don't really know, but it was 124 meals. And then also they serve 8 residents.
Okay, thank you.
And that comes out to basically $6 a meal. So that's pretty good.
One additional reason is Sound Generation is a powerhouse in the broader Seattle area. And this is the first time that in my memory, tell me if I'm correct on this, Rita, but they haven't requested. They get much more funding from others, and it's typically low income areas where they do most of their work. Having said that, learning, if we align with them even in some small way, learning about their distribution model for Meals on Wheels could be really powerful, knowing that seniors, as Jody said, it's one thing to get a box of stuff delivered by HopeLink or the food bank or many of the church-based, service-based groups. It's another to have a prepared meal. So I feel like the learning we can gain from them, and also they'll reciprocate by helping us understand this whole area a little bit more deeply. So for $750 or whatever, it seemed like a good start with them.
So are you keeping the transportation program at 500 only? Is that what I understand?
No, we're not funding that one.
You're not funding that one at all?
Yeah, because Eastside Friends of Seniors, we're giving them $20,000 for transportation, and they do a good job. So we figured if we're investing in picking and choosing, plus 500 just seemed like it's so small, it's not worth the effort.
Okay.
The next up is, you can surprise me, Rita. Parkinson's. This was a tough one. Basically, it was a new grant request providing outreach, information, referral, and support groups for people with Parkinson's and their families. It was to support groups to alleviate barriers to social connectedness. You can imagine if you have that, you'd start to feel even more isolated. And it helps facilitator training and outreach. We were torn on this, or the first time grant request. It's a clear need generally, but we couldn't connect it particularly deeply to Sammamish. And we felt like if someone really needed, because a lot of it was about
online
marketing and communication. And if someone was afflicted, sadly, with this, we didn't feel like we necessarily should be funding this on behalf of Sammamish residents. They requested a very small amount, just $13.50, but it did feel outside the bounds of the 5 need areas. And you can always find a way to put it under one of the umbrellas, but this is a specific medical condition that has specific needs associated with it. And we found that if we're having discipline about what we're doing here, we are not recommending we fund it. Most importantly, because if someone needs to know about them, they will reach out anyway. And it's just strategically, it actually did make a lot of sense for Sammamish to be, not that you wouldn't want to help someone with Parkinson's, but we even as a small amount, we are recommending not going forward with this. Anything else on that, Jody?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think we felt, a lot of the programming, I mean, we're in time of COVID, but even non-COVID, it seems like it's all online. It's not like services, so they can easily find that stuff on the internet. I mean, they're going to have to go to the internet to find it. That's just what they do. And so we just sort of felt like in light of the other services, which are higher touch, more personal for seniors, we thought that these would be more used than that one among our residents. So in just trying to be disciplined and not fund every program, we thought this was a lower priority.
And they didn't have any data whatsoever for 2019 actual, like at all. And they did project something for 2021, but it wasn't at all clear the context for that. So we found the grant lacking relative to understanding the Sammamish impact in this case. So not a big number, and if you're looking to feel good, you certainly can fund it. It's just it didn't feel strategically disciplined for us. So we're passing on that one. Got 3 more. Okay. Easter seals. Do you want to talk about that, Jody?
This one is daycare services, mostly for really vulnerable senior populations, so adults with disabilities, vets, and family members. And we felt like there really aren't many services for adults with disabilities up here on the Sammamish Plateau. And so in terms of need and the uniqueness of services, we thought it was worth funding. Let's see, they're asking for $7,500, and we actually want to fund them at a little less, at $5,000. And that's mostly because it's not that many residents that they reach, but at the same time, seniors with disabilities, daycare services for those, there's really not many places to go to for daycare services. So we did want to fund them. We didn't think it was a lot of people, but it was still needed. And it's the same residents, right? That like if it's an adult with a senior with a disability, is going to keep going to that service all year round, that daycare. They don't just like go once. And so even if it's only 7 residents, they're going every week all year round. So we decided that we thought we could fund them at the $5,000 level. Do you have something to add, Tom?
No, that makes perfect sense. That's all I have on my notes. The second to last one, getting to the wire here, is Providence Marionwood. The history there is we actually did not fund them last year. They didn't put a grant in, but we did fund them at the $8,500 level for both 2018 and 2017. They are looking for $5,000, I think.
10,000.
10,000.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, 10,000. We're not recommending that, I don't think. Long story short, Marionwood is an interesting one because it's part of Sammamish, but it's also part of Issaquah. They've been a pretty visual part of the community in terms of either transportation, et cetera. They certainly have tried to participate and help in the senior center startup. But their grant also was a little unclear in terms of what their impact would be to Sammamish versus Issaquah. And in fact, it was sometimes a little hard to follow. Having said that, we found value in as much as their specific request. The other thing is they are a not-for-profit organization, and they do not turn people away if the money's not available. And to us, that was the most compelling thing, that sometimes people are like, great, come on in until your money runs out. And that's very sad. The fact that they are not-for-profit and they will work with you is powerful. We're recommending, I think we netted out at 5,000, Jody, on this. Is that, or Rita?
8,500. Did we say? I have.
I believe it was 5,000 you guys recommended.
Yeah, the 8,500 was 2 years ago. This was about, for this year, we were recommending 5.
Yeah, we also felt, I just want to reiterate the point that they do serve the poor and the disabled, so they don't turn those away. And that's important because there's no other place like that on the plateau.
Yep. Any questions on that before we talk about the last one? Okay. Senior Center, I'm going to ask Jody to talk. I will share with you, this was the first grant that I ever wrote. So if you ever want to read a really well-written grant, maybe get a tear in your eye.
It is a very strong proposal. And, you got the Senior Center has just been an amazing success, and really the success of really hard work of 2 of our commissioners, Joyce and Tom, but really all volunteer. And I strongly felt that it's been an amazing success in such a short period of time, but it's not sustainable on a pure volunteer basis. And so the request is for 15,000. And the reason I feel like we should fully support this grant request is we really need to, it's in the best interest of the communities to sustain the senior center. And we need to get them funding to have staffing, or it's not going to be sustainable. It's too much work for volunteers. And so that's why I really feel strongly that we should fully fund this one at 15,000. Not to mention it was a very well-written grant.
I recused myself from the discussion, just so you know, but Jody, thank you for that.
Yeah, it was a well-written grant. We've been seeing from the very beginning, getting updates from Joyce and Tom about the incredible success and how many people volunteer, how many people participate. And there's just we really need to keep this thing going, and we're going to need to make it sustainable. So
So Joyce and Tom, are you planning to get funding from other sources as well? Because, you know, in order to have staff, obviously 15,000 will not be sufficient.
Yes, the short answer is we've requested 15 from the city of Issaquah.
Yeah.
And here's what's really cool, but needs to be, I'll say it, activated. When you talk to people about the senior center, when you tell them about the interest and you say 8,500 residents are 60 or over, you get vigorous head nods like, this is really good, this is really good. People are wanting to give us money, but we need to become, we need to mature our organization, become a 501(c), which this would require. And I believe the money, because we think we need about 40K a year, roughly,
Yeah.
to get this thing up and running. The service organizations, the faith-based organizations, we've had people say, I will help you, help me understand how you're going to do this. And now we're in this funny position where we're completely virtual, but we won't be like that forever. So we see our way to being able to get 40 or 45K, but Sammamish has to help us in some way, or to Jody's point, it won't happen. I mean, it's kind of sort of borderline exhausting to keep it going even now. So
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, it takes a while to get 501(c)(3) often, not necessarily with this budget. You might be able to get it pretty quickly with the easy, but if you get this, do you have a fiscal sponsor set up?
we actually we wouldn't take the money until we get the 501. And
Okay.
we've already got a plan. We've actually been working with someone, Sally Farrell, a community volunteer, connected us with, and we have our basic plan, and it'll take a couple months, but we also have a couple months because of the virus kind of thing. We are hesitant to ask someone to become a fiscal agent for us, although the Eastside Friends of Seniors have approached us and suggested we revisit that discussion with them. They weren't ready 9 months ago. And we might do that. If we have to, we could do that.
Okay.
I just don't want to be beholden to an organization that's going to slow us down. We don't want to do that. But Joyce, do you have anything on that?
You're right on.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think my organization helps organizations get their 501(c)(3). I think with your budget, you should be able to get the easy, which can be turned around in a matter of weeks if you do it well, right?
That's exactly.
I actually would suggest, so you're applying for 15 from Issaquah, 15 from us, and where's the other 10 coming from?
It kind of will be an amalgamation of service organizations, volunteer. We got people that will give us money.
Okay.
I don't think we'll come up short on that once we get started. We've got Sammamish Friends organization, a $2,000 check. We've leaned on our church to give us money.
Mm-hmm. Nice.
So
great. Any questions on that?
What's your total for this category?
The total requested was 55,129, and we're recommending 45,779.
42,000. Something could you read off those numbers? No, I don't have these.
The request.
Okay, I can send everyone a copy of these slides, so I can send that to you tomorrow morning if that helps.
It was 50, just so you know, order of magnitude, it was 55,000 requested and about 46,000 recommended for the seniors.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay.
Well, thank you guys. You did a lot of work on that and very informative.
Thank you, Stan.
We had last month discussed maybe putting together a list and going to city council on recommendations dealing with diversity and things that are going on in the city. I'd like to thank Jody for sending that email. It was very heartfelt and very informative. I don't know if that is enough or how you guys would like to pursue or do we want to do it on an individual basis? Do we have a feeling? Anybody?
So I'll jump in. First of all, Jody, thank you.
Okay, thanks.
There you go. Thank you very, very much, Jody. That was so thoughtful, and the fact that you're willing to share in that way and just guide us a little bit was super helpful, both in the last meeting, but also your note that went out was really helpful. It's one thing. Two, I struggle with what the best way to proceed is personally, but I also know we are the Human Services Commission for the City of Sammamish, and it feels like we should either do something or say something or at least provide some counsel and guidance, but not in a trite way, not in a way that's like, well, we're going to do better, because this is a moment that's a flashpoint, but we need to think about longer term, not just do something tomorrow, because it really is systemic, right? And as a group, feels like we'd be remiss if we did nothing. And yet, I think we have to be really planful and thoughtful about what we might do or recommend. That's as far as I can get on this. Any comments on any of this?
Well, me personally, I'd like to see some hows. How do we intend to get rid of some of this or work on it or even reduce it? It exists. We know it exists. It has to end. So, I didn't do enough research to come up with hows. I did talk to a gentleman who's 78, who's a good friend of mine, who had been through all the civil rights movement and everything else. And, I got feedback from him and it helped. But he didn't even have a how answer.
Anybody else have?
Anyone else?
I mean, one approach could be if there's a subsection of this group, similar to how we took on mental wellness and we cobbled together a plan and then we brought it forward. And that seemed almost easier in a way. It wasn't easy, just to be clear, but I'm just thinking out loud here. Is there a subsegment of this group that would want to raise their hand and say, I would like to spend some time taking in the input from the group, reflecting on Sammamish, and maybe coming back with a recommendation to the commission in terms of how we might move forward, including, we don't think we should do anything. The city of, I just was made aware the city of Redmond wrote a statement that I want to spend a little more time reading through. The question is, should we be doing anything here or not? And is this appropriate for a smaller group to take on and then engage the full group? It's hard to do this on Zoom or whatever it is we're on.
Yeah.
Jody, do you have any thoughts?
Well, my initial thought is just reflecting to you. I guess I could share with you what I'm doing in my own
Cool.
work. And I feel like as a non-Black person of color, but non-Black, it's on me at this point to really educate myself. And I think I said that in my note to you all, that what I'm doing is really investing my time in educating myself so that I really do, to the best of my ability, understand the dynamics of racism and how it's impacted our country and our system and our citizens and all of us. Like I intellectually have known this, that we've had slavery and all of this stuff that, I learned in school. And what I learned in school wasn't even, that really was completely whitewashed. But we all, because we're not Black and we live in a community where it's very safe for all of us, we really have the privilege of not really engaging with the issue at a deep level. We don't need to. It doesn't affect our daily life. And that's really a privilege. Whereas for Black folks, they don't have that option, right? They every 24/7 they have to live it. Mothers have to be worried about their sons at night because their sons could be walking down the street and attacked. And so I feel like the only thing that I can do, not the only thing, one of the things that I can do as an individual person that's not Black is really educate myself. And so I would be invested in, I think for me, what I've been trying to do is model that and talk about that so that people, instead of just saying, oh yeah, Black Lives Matter, I care, I believe in Black Lives Matter, put that on your social media. It's great that people are supporting the movement that way, that more people, not just Black people, are supporting the movement in that way. But for us to really act, we have to know, we have to understand it. And to understand it, we need to educate ourselves. And I can say for myself that I've done a fair amount of reading, but really not enough. And there's so many resources, as I had put in my email. I tried to put really accessible resources that are really easy to get and not be like overwhelming. But there's so much, and it's not on Black folks to teach us. We have to take that on ourselves. It's not their duty to educate us. We have to take that on as citizens of this country. And so I think if we can role model that and even role model it, maybe even have a little study group or share resources or take time to watch one of these videos and have a conversation to show and role model for the community that the commission is spending time and investing in educating ourselves to try and understand, and not relying on saying, oh, Black Lives Matter person, come over here and tell us. Like, we're actually taking it on ourselves. That would be a huge message in itself. And then to role model that for the council and say, council, look what we're doing. We're spending time where we're actually learning together and investing our intellectual capacity and our council time and our personal time because we're reading at home and now coming back to talk about it. Like, that is huge, that all of us would do that. All of us non-Black folks as a commission would do that, just to better our own knowledge, and then as a commission be better and role model it out for the council, and maybe even challenge them. Say, hey, we're doing this. We want to see if you can outstudy us. Like, let's have a competition here. Who can learn the most, or who can read the chapters the fastest, or whatever. I don't know. But I mean, to do that to role model that would be huge for the community and for the council. So I don't know. That's just a brainstorm off the top of my head.
I assume, unlike Redmond, that our council hasn't put out any kind of a statement.
I know the council made some high-level comments. So I don't think Sammamish has led the way per se, but I know they tried to do something early on. So I don't know if that answers your questions, Terry.
Well, it sort of does, but I guess I would then support what Jody just said, that as the Human Services Commission, it would seem like we were uniquely tasked to provide to the council our thoughts on this. As we see through the grants and the applications, we see the needs of Sammamish, and we see that these are issues that are not we are not immune to any of this, and here's what the commission are doing.
Just quickly jumping in. So the commission did do a proclamation. Sorry?
Council?
Oh, yeah. So there was a proclamation by council towards anti-Asian sentiment and also Black Lives Matter. So that was a few months back. I can forward that to you if you guys want to read that.
Be good.
I'd like to add that, we've gotten here. It's taking years for us to get to this point, and it's bred into so many unconscious acts that we deal with, and we're not going to solve it right away. So I think even an ongoing effort to increase our own awareness is beneficial, like Jody was saying.
Yeah.
Does anybody else?
I mean, I just feel that we have this false dichotomy that one year we consider to be the grant review year, and the following year is more of a learning year. Whereas I feel that on some of these issues, we need ongoing learning, and this is one which we can't postpone to next year, right? This is really urgent, and I completely endorse what Jody has suggested. I feel as though you have to begin with informing yourself. So you can't just jump to action. We have to inform and educate ourselves and really have a discussion about it and how it could impact our grant making and the work we do as a commission before we jump to major recommendations. So without being well informed, like I would not feel comfortable coming up with a set of recommendations. I just would not. I feel as though I need to be much more informed before we talk about how do we address this systemically, and how can we incorporate some appropriate practices within our grant making. That would come later. So I completely endorse what Jody has suggested in terms of maybe bringing some immediacy to making this a learning priority, and this could become part of our ongoing learning as a commission.
I agree with that sentiment. I mean, it is an ongoing process, and I think without doing our homework and without educating ourselves, whatever we say is going to be minuscule in the big scheme of things.
Mm-hmm.
I think the self-awareness is an important thing to me.
Is there any group
Anybody else?
Go ahead, CJ.
Go ahead.
Any group that would help us? Jody, have you found in your studies some group that might step in and say, well, let me see if I can help you understand this?
There are groups, we'd have to pay them. I mean, people don't, I think that's one of the things that oftentimes commissions and honestly white organizations are like, oh, come educate us. You're a person in the community, come tell us what you know, without compensating them for their time and their effort and their knowledge. And that's not appropriate. We have to, if we are going to bring someone in, we have to have a budget for it. We have to pay them and compensate them. And I think there were trainers like Sarah Tran and others, but I don't think one training is going to do it. That's the other thing. Like one training and we're check the box. We went to a training on implicit bias. We're good. That's not it's a good start. It's a good place if we have a budget for it. If we can do a series of trainings and conversations. So, I think it can be a combination of things. We could bring someone in if we had a budget for it. We can read a book, watch a couple of videos together. There's, we can do a mishmash of things but I do think it is an ongoing thing to really understand it. And I think, as Nishina said, I think having conversation is one way that we can help each other learn.
Jody, the mayor sent me an email, or actually gave me a phone call the other day, that she had discussions with the president of the Seattle Black Lives Matter, and they'd be more than happy to come to speak. And she said, would there be any expense? And they said, no, we're more than happy to come and speak.
We
so
could
that's
do
an
that.
advantage.
Again, I just worry that it's a one-off thing, like we have them come. I mean, I think it's great. And honestly, I would still want to give them some kind of honorarium, even if they said it's not. It's just, they are a nonprofit, that's their work. Their work is to do community organizing. They need money just like every other nonprofit. And I wouldn't want them to, I would feel better if we did something. Even if we put it in, if we don't have a city budget, I would pay them. I would make a donation to them. Because I just don't feel right asking Black folks to come and educate non-Black folks without compensating them and letting them know how much we, in a real way, how much we really do appreciate the effort that we're asking them to do.
Joyce, anything call to you?
Bob?
I'm holding.
Joyce?
I'm extremely excited about this conversation, but I'm holding
Tired.
back. No, I'm just, Joyce, does this ring true for you? Anything to add, or somebody?
I think some reading, really reading or video or something to give us more background and some more history on this.
Yeah,
Because just seeing old movies is not going to do it.
yeah, watching Selma 5 times,
I have a book recommendation that I think is excellent that I read not too long ago. And it's not that thick. I think I put it in the thing. It's called White Fragility. It's on the bestseller list with Black Lives Matter right now, and so it's hard to get actually because it's sold out everywhere. My daughter has my copy right now.
KCLS have it on audio version.
What? Say that again?
KCLS have it on audio version.
And it's written by Robin DiAngelo, who actually used to live in Washington, was a professor at UW. So she's somewhat local. And it's very accessible. She writes it as a white person for white folks or non-Black folks to understand the issue and what we come from as non-Black folks from this perspective, and how important it is for us to learn, and the typical barriers it is for us not being Black and having the privileges that we have. So I think it's a really insightful book. I think every non-Black person, particularly people with privilege in that living in a nice community, should read. So that would be my recommendation. It's not that thick. It's a little paperback.
So I love where this discussion is going, and it's filling a little bit of a gap for me, because when I read about proclamations and do better and let's learn, it doesn't seem grounded in genuineness or true insight. So the idea that we as a commission might take this upon ourselves and learn and literally have a shared experience, a book, and maybe Jody, I'd love to take your lead in terms of what else, if there should anything else. I completely agree on paying people who might come talk to us. And if money's needed, let's just ask the council. Like, it can't be that much. And the idea that we can role model and lead here is powerful. And if we don't do it, who else would, right? So one idea is to create a schedule over the next period of time, couple months, but don't wait a couple months. Get started now. Even to the point, should we have an extra meeting where we really go deep in this, or is this part of a half hour of every one of these meetings where it's going to be like that for the foreseeable future? I love this. I think we all need to reflect on it, but I love the approach this is starting to form up. And Terry, I think you're saying something, but you're on mute.
Sorry. No, I agree wholeheartedly. Just saying that it would be appropriate for us to convey to the council what it is that we're doing.
Yeah, I think
and
we should.
what form that would take.
How do we create some structure around this? One idea is just read a book and reconvene. It feels like waiting a month doesn't feel particularly robust or action oriented. It does take time to read a book.
You could also do by chapters, like read 2 or 3 chapters and then discuss, and then read 2 or 3 chapters and discuss.
Yep.
Because that might help us really, really dive deep and really have a deeper understanding. I would even invite the council members to join us in our little book club.
Yeah, that's a great idea. Love it.
I think also it would be lovely if you could all have a copy of the book and you're reading it, and we can message that out to the community. Like, learning starts here, and we're learning in public, and we're learning together. I think that's very, very powerful.
Yeah,
that would be awesome.
Let's look at our long-term agenda calendar and see how we can plug it in and where we can plug it in. Because with the grant review presentations, I don't know if I mean, we could always extend the meeting a half hour at the end for discussion, or we can do, separate sessions.
Yeah.
That's pretty nice.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to plug it in right now, we'll review this now because we got what's
That sounds
scheduled.
good.
But
Let's have the
maybe
staff
Tom
look
and
at
I-
it and figure it out.
Yep. Agree.
Rita and Mike,
Yeah,
can you
maybe-
guys look at the schedule and figure out where we could plug in, like, come up with some ideas?
Yeah,
And then
I'm
Tom-
thinking I'll do some research as to how accessible the actual book is and what the wait time. So if we plug it in next month, if no one can get it, it's kind of moot. So should I just do some background research and just find out? And is your senses you want to do a little bit of a conversation every meeting, or dedicate an informal meeting, or it'll still have to be a noticed meeting, just dedicated to the book? Or what is your sense of?
I think it should be a learning, ongoing thing, because if we let it unfold, not to say we might not want to have a special meeting to jumpstart this, but it really can help inform us in our discernment about grants too, right? So, I mean, we're already taking a half hour in this discussion tonight. What if, we took a half hour in every section every time we met? We may want to have a additional meeting. Anyway,
I think,
But
and
why
I think
don't-
we should do it by chapters. I don't know. I guess we don't meet that often, but it might be nice to do pieces of it so the whole book would be a lot to digest.
right.
But-
That's what I'm saying. We actually have it. We bought it. I just asked my wife. So,
Nice.
so what if in terms of action, Stan, you and I met with Mike and Rita and just figured out how to plug this in the schedule and brainstorm a little bit, and then suggest a plan to the rest of the commission?
That's what I
And
was
very
gonna
quickly, so
suggest.
we're going to commit to purchasing those books, and with Amazon delivery, we hopefully should get it tomorrow. So, so if we can get the physical copies, yes, good old Amazon. So we will commit to getting books for the commission. Jody, you have a copy, or do you need a copy?
I would love one because mine is lent out.
Okay, sure.
I think it's great. And Tom, we'll get together with Rita and Mike and tighten up the schedule. Right now, let's just look at a half hour at the end of the next meeting. That way we can read a couple chapters and review as far as we can.
I want to just say that I am really grateful to all of you and super impressed that we are actually taking this on and reading White Fragility in the Sammamish Human Services Commission. And I think it's incredible role modeling, and I'm just so proud to be part of this group. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. And thanks for that email. That was, like I said, it was very heartfelt and it was informative to everyone. And I think council took it to heart as well.
Thanks.
Very quickly, so it arrived July the 21st. It's not next day. You're right, Jody. It's there's a little bit of a glut. So should we assume, should we purchase them and then go from there, and we'll figure out?
Yep.
Yeah.
So next meeting, the
Just say
26th.
yes. I'm going to press. Okay. All right.
I'm not going to be able to read a lot from the 22nd or from the 21st to the 22nd. So
Oh, it's a page turner, Stan. You're going to stay up all night. You won't
An all-nighter. Put the coffee
oh
on.
my gosh. Do I get up early in the
Cool.
morning and not watch Leave It to Beaver and read and All right, guys. So our next meeting is scheduled for the 22nd at 6:30. And it's on mental wellness. Great.
Great. Thank you.
Does anybody have any problems with the schedule?
Not at this time.
Mike, Rita, do you have any additional input on the schedule? Okay. Do we have any other business?
Not for
Any other
me.
comments or feedback? Great. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. All opposed? Good. I was afraid somebody was going to have to stay online by
summer.
themselves. All right, great, guys. 22nd. And we'll get the book on the 21st, or maybe the morning of the 22nd. And I'll speed read.
There you go.
All right, guys. Have
Bye.
a great evening.
Thank you.
I appreciate your time. And I also appreciate
Thank
you
the
all. Dudley.
citizens.
Thank you all.
Bye.
We had a couple citizens that signed on too. I appreciate them watching us and getting involved. Have a great.
Good. Love that.
I'm done.
All right, Stan.
All right.
Nice job,
Bye.
man. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Bye.